All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Titus. I'm the VP of Go to Market at Civic, and I'm the host of the Tokenized Identity podcast. This is a show where we discuss the latest and the greatest happening at the intersection of digital identity and blockchain. Now, if you haven't already, hit that like button, use the subscribe button on YouTube, follow us on X, LinkedIn, whatever your favorite podcasting platform is, and stay up to date with the latest episodes and updates. It helps us grow this initiative. Now, before we begin, I want to kind of share a little bit about Civic. We're a tokenized identity platform that provides builders with tools both for Web2 and Web3 to prevent bot attacks, symbol attacks, and enforce identity-related restrictions by tokenizing things like CAPTCHA, passes, liveness, uniqueness, identity verifications on chain while preserving user privacy. And we also just announced a custom pass type, which allows compliance departments to easily enforce their rules on chain without writing a ton of new code. But enough about that for now. Today, we're going to talk about the latest and the greatest in games in Web3. And the topic for today is if players have more ownership over their in game destinies, the engagement goes up. And we're here with Corey, the CEO of Honeyland. Honeyland is a casual strategy play and own game for iOS and Android. Now, I'll let Corey introduce himself. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the pod.
Hey, Titus, I am super pumped to be here. So, as Titus mentioned, I'm Corey. I'm the CEO of Honeyland, play and own mobile game built on Solana. We've been live for a little over a year now in App Stores, been live as a project for coming up on about 3 years now, getting everything to market and building the community. About 20,000 daily active players. You can find Honeyland in App Stores all over the world. And I think this is kind of one of the big things. And Titus, it's why it's been so fun to work with you guys. We're really trying to truly bridge the gap between Web 2 and Web 3. And there's just a lot of challenges that take place in doing that. But inside Honeyland as a mobile game, you can mint and buy and sell and trade NFTs directly through a marketplace using our own cryptocurrency. You can buy the cryptocurrency as an in-app purchase through with Apple Pay or Google Pay. We've got Stripe on ramps, and so this idea of like proof of unique human was a really really big unlock for us. I know that I'm sure we'll get into this, but getting Civic as kind of this Web 2, Web 3 tool to come in and really provide a backbone for us to identify real unique players. There's a lot more that we can do. When you introduce Web 3 games, there's this idea of ownership and value the value creation inside the game. And if you have players who have 100 accounts to a single player, it can ruin an economy. And so our goal was how do we provide value to a single person behind a single account? And so yeah, it's been really fun getting to know your team and working with your incredibly talented team. And so pumped to be here.
Appreciate the kind words. And like, look, as a kind of casual player myself, it's like I really hate it when like there's like one or two or like three groups of players just like really take all of the points and like take the fun out of the game. So I think that just leveling the playing field with tech is so cool that you guys are doing that. But before like dive in, for the audience that hasn't like played Honeyland, what's it about? How do people play it?
Yeah, so it's a strategy and resource management game. So when you come in and start playing, you become the beekeeper of your own hive. You're going to get some bees, and as you start to do more actions in the game, you'll be able to breed and hatch more of these bees. And then your goal is to strategically send these bees out on missions. There's a fixed number of basically assets that are emitted every single day through different lands inside of Honeyland. So you can go out, send your bees on harvesting missions to bring back tokens, which is the HXD token. It becomes the currency of the ecosystem. It is an on-chain cryptocurrency. Or you're going out to bring back honeypots, which are full of items to upgrade your bees, give yourself advantages on missions to basically help strengthen and grow your colony of bees. And so your goal is to resource or to manage those resources that you have, bring things back, and as you're bringing more things back, figure out how you're going to strategically grow your colony. And the idea is that it's basically a PVE, but it's really PvPVE. So since there's a certain number of fixed resources, you're competing with other players to try and get as many of those resources as you can. And so yeah, and then there's PvP elements. There's, like I said, marketplace and all these other kind of meta games within the game that become really really fun for players as well.
And you mentioned you guys had a launch. Like sounds like you got also an airdrop. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. So kind of coming in, like I said, we've been live for a little over a year. I think April 30th was our 1 year anniversary, and so live for just over a year. But we wanted to use kind of we've really done a great job, I think, at this point of like onboarding new players and retention and growing that user base. And so to gain a little bit more exposure, we decided to do a play an airdrop where players can come in and start playing. And there's a whole airdrop pass of basically daily and season long items and things, or basically activities or tasks that you're going to do. You earn airdrop points that puts you on a leaderboard. And then we've got, 5 million HXD that's going to be going out to players from that leaderboard when we get to the end of this airdrop pass. And so, um, again, going back to the launch was it was really important to get Civic live for this because as you're starting to incentivize people with an airdrop, it would be really easy to set up 10 or 20 or 30 accounts, go through all the tasks every single day with multiple accounts, and have a single person collecting a much larger piece of the pie. And so Civic verification, or what we call as a certified beekeeper, once you go through the Civic verification inside Honeyland, you become a certified beekeeper, is one of the requirements to be eligible for any rewards in the airdrop.
Yeah, and I think just kind of to clarify what kind of verifications people are going through here is like we're not like you guys are not asking anyone for like their IDs or anything at this point. It's more around like, hey, can we check if this is a real person to make sure they don't have multiple accounts? Like kind of like the lowest possible friction while maintaining that kind of player experience.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And so for us, it's just a face map, and we just say, does that face map exist as a player to tied to any other player account in our system? If not, great, you become certified, and then you move on. So there's no ID, there's no name, there's no, it's not KYC, it's none of that. It's really just saying, are you, take your face map, tie it to a single account, and then we just make sure that all future accounts can't be tied to that same face map. So super, easy process. And yeah, it's as minimally invasive as possible, I would say.
Awesome, awesome. So what are you working on now? What's next on the roadmap as you're kind of rolling out this rewards distribution, this airdrop, like this like play to earn piece?
Yeah, so I would say we've gotten to a really good place of like player onboarding, new player experience, all of the game mechanics. When you get into it, it doesn't feel like a Web3 game. Like it's as good as any Web2 game, graphically, gameplay wise, feature set. We've done a ton of that stuff, and so my next focus is really moving on to this second element, which is this PvP element. I kind of teased it. It's done. It's in the game. It's available. But we are going to be completely revamping it to turn it into basically like weekly PvP tournaments. So as you're going out on all these missions, you're upgrading your bees, you're getting them into a position essentially to be ready for battle. And the PvP battle is real stakes gaming. It's when you're going to raid another hive, you're actually risking your own HXD. If you win the raid, you're stealing HXD from other players. And so it becomes a real risk reward part of the game, but also has its own weekly leaderboards and prizes for anybody who's competing in this. So PvP unlocks a lot of what you can do inside Honeyland by or I should say when the revamp goes live, it will unlock a lot of what you're able to do from the mission standpoint of going out and harvesting and hunting missions. You'll have a lot of advantages when you're competing in PvP on those weekly tournaments, but it becomes that real stakes element. And so there will be really two core game loops. The first one being all the missions that are clearly in play right now and kind of are the main game loop. And then this PvP will become this other really fun part of why you're going out on all those missions and building this colony is to get your colony ready to go, wage against other players and get into some real stakes gaming and climb up the PvP leaderboards. And so we're working on that. And then I would say kind of a bigger, more global vision is just really make Honeyland a much more social game through things like, PvP leaderboards where people can compete against each other directly at a much higher level in tiers and things like that, where people can communicate more, where people can, right now we've got in-game marketplaces, you can trade items, you can participate in raffles and stuff, but trying to make that more available so that players can communicate directly with each other and build not just a individual gameplay experience, but a much more social gameplay experience.
What do you think is the most engaging piece of Honeyland right now? Where do people spend the most time?
Um, I mean, truth be told, it's the ability to earn, right? Web3 games are right now the biggest selling point of a Web3 game is that you can come in and earn HXD and you can turn that into, something that can actually put food on your table. And so I think that's probably the most engaging part is being able to kind of like go out on missions and kind of compete with yourself of like how much HXD can I earn in a day? Or if I upgrade my B in this certain way, how much more HXD can I bring back on an individual mission? Or if you're going out for more the honeypot type of stuff, how many items can you get in a day that you could sell in a marketplace to another player? And so I would say the commerce aspect is the most engaging part. Uh, Involved in all that is leaderboards and competition and progress and growth. And so like all these things that are, that are common in Web2 games, it's just the end goal tends to right now be more for financial gain than just like pure passion of the game or kind of flex. And so our goal is to really marry those two things together. I think PvP becomes a really really good way to do that. But yeah, I would say the most engaging thing is kind of competing for the paper gains and then turning those into to real gains or reinvesting those back into your colony to watch it grow over time. And so I'd say that the marketplace is probably the reason that most people are playing. And I think we've put that in context of a really really fun, well put together game too.
So I mean, let's zoom out just a little bit. Like, what defines a Web3 game? Why is that? How is that different from a Web2 game? Like, how are those two kind of separated? And what's possible thanks to Web3 that wasn't really possible in Web2?
So this is a question that I may feel somewhat different than like a lot of Web3 builders. I think when I first got into this, I felt like, that what made a Web3 game was that it had blockchain and cryptocurrency and tokens. And I think that's still a really interesting part of like the what we call the Web3 gaming sector. But I think what most people who are into Web3 gaming want is more kind of what meme coins and airdrops can provide, where it's this idea of kind of like chasing something with outsized risk or reward. It's truly about like a PvP element of where you're competing against other players for your piece of the pie. And I think this can be done in like a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to take place in the form of what a traditional like Web2 game takes place, where you go in, you open up an app, and you play and rank on a leaderboard. I think when we see things like meme coins, people are essentially betting on what's going to become the next, what can 5 or 10 or 20x quicker than something else, and they're willing to lose a bunch on this to win a bunch on this. And I think that's kind of more what Web3 gaming is right now, which is just this idea of like getting into something and seeing where it's going to go, this kind of really volatile, high risk, high reward, and expecting some sort of financial gain on the other side. And so I think that games that really understand this well will start to capitalize on that in much more significant and meaningful ways. I think this idea of like real stakes gaming is a big part that will be unlocked with Web3. But if we strip it back or zoom out kind of to more your original question, I still do think it is the idea that there's tokens involved, there's ownership or what I would call custody, so that as you're earning things inside Honeyland, you have the freedom to sell those, trade those, transfer those as you want. Whereas in a Web2 game, you don't have that ability. And so generally what that unlocks is the ability to create more of a commerce or more of like an actual, marketplace or economy that players can participate in, where the only kind of emission to items is no longer just the game creator, it's the creator that emits them into players, and then players become a source of commerce for other players as well. And so it creates a much more multi-layered economy, and has a payment rail system behind it that's pretty easy to transfer both items and currency from players to players. And so I think it's really about now taking those core components and saying, what does that unlock that people will really want to become a part of?
Yeah, and I think that that's definitely like a lot more engaging, a lot more fun, and much a lot more interesting from a lot of reasons. And like people can just like venture outside the ecosystem as well somehow, and like but also stay within it if you want. You can do some cross promo with other games maybe or stuff like that. That opens up in Web3 more than anything else. But also, I feel like there's a kind of cybersecurity or security risk that comes into play here beyond kind of the stakes of the game itself. And it's like I think it's on the game designers almost to kind of figure out what those are and how to protect the game against them while they're designing the mechanics. What has been your experience kind of thinking about that? Like, how are you guys tackling that piece?
Yeah. So when there's a financial component to it, the you become a bigger target, right? When there's an actual tokenized asset that if somebody can get a hold of it, whether through fair or unfair means, whether through exploits or poor game design, if they can do it, they're going to. And so we've seen players get really really creative with how they're going to try and take advantage of either game design or either poor game design or potential exploits. And so we just have to be a lot more creative, and that means, or I shouldn't say a lot more creative. We have to be a lot more thoughtful in terms of how we protect all that stuff, and that comes from both a systematic approach in terms of like, how you limit an amount of funds that would ever be sitting in a hot wallet to, and what your wallet strategy is, and how you put multi sigs, and that right level of kind of like security on everything. But then also, from the game design, and for us, the the certified beekeeper was such a huge part of our game design that says we can unlock so much more if we just know that it's one person, and we don't have to KYC you, but we do know that it puts a little bit more of responsibility on the player to say, okay, well, my base map is at least known here, and if I want to go exploit or test this system, there's kind of the mess around and find out. You could ultimately be, that there could be penalties that, through getting banned or whatever, that may not allow you back into the game or the ecosystem in the same way. And so I think there just becomes, my goal, I always say, is to protect the ecosystem at all cost. And so even if that means making it a little bit less convenient by saying, hey, certified beekeepers, I know it's not the most fun process for everybody to go through, but in you doing your part, it allows us to create a much better game that we can reward more people in more meaningful ways, knowing that we're protecting the ecosystem. And so there's a number of ways that you have to protect the ecosystem from bad actors, from good actors who can find exploits, and then just from the overall security and infrastructure and architecture that you build. That's a different that are different challenges or new challenges in Web3 that didn't exist in Web2. But it's been really fun, and I can say that our team, you've gotten the chance to work with them, incredibly talented, and has security as a top priority in everything that they build, which has made us pretty resilient to some of the risks that are associated with, building in Web3.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure like for players, like it's you don't want even to think about like, hey, there's a risk of somebody got kind of taking over this. Like I prefer going through a few hoops at the beginning to ensure that like, hey, this is gonna be a fair game and I have a chance of like competing even at the close to the top and not just like kind of watch some people collect all the rewards. So I think that's bad for the ecosystem as a whole. I think that's not just for games, right? I think a lot of like other verticals within the Web3 space have this challenge when they're distributing some kind of rewards, incentives, and whatnot. But before we go there, I think there's like one more piece that I want to think about, is like here and talk about, is like the art and animation. Like I love your guys' brand. Like where does that come from? Like how do you guys develop it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, our team is so talented. It's really fun to work with a talented team, both on the engineering and the art side. Um, I can't say that I've had a lot of the creative vision behind it. I oftentimes, my goal is to like, as like a CEO, I always say like to basically fill our organization with dense talent and then let them cook, right? Like let them go do what they want to do. And so I generally try and give a little bit of direction or kind of what I'm thinking, but very little, and wait till they kind of bring back, a lot of what their creative freedom is. And then we kind of start to slowly maneuver from there. But it's really, really fun. I don't have to give a lot of instruction. I just get to be amazed. And the cool thing is most of what they do is not at any sort of instruction. They have, a portion of their time that's devoted to just like freely thinking of new things that they can do, and that really expands what the creativity is, and what they're able to do. And so a lot of the things that have been done are just from their kind of own free time exploring or experimenting with things, and then coming back and being like, hey, by the way, we've got this, or we've got a new trailer for you, or we put together this really cool thing, or when we start to see the artwork for Universe 2, or hey, we designed some new queens that we thought you would love. And like these are not at all like the direction of us. It's just kind of like, there's certain high priority things, and then there's other things that you guys can just go do creatively. But yeah, I would say, we have an art team, and we've got about 7 artists that work on all of our different things, and they just know each other really well, and they're consistently there, and they can keep putting together great art every single day. But it's my favorite channel that we have in Telegram is our art channel. Uh, about once a week, I just get a full art dump of about 1 to 200 new assets that just come in, and it's all the things that we're working on. And again, some of those are at direction, and some of those are, just kind of new things that I'm seeing that I sometimes I don't even know what they are. They're just things that they're working on, and their sketches, and I don't know how they're going to be implemented into the game, but they have a really cool vision. So they've been designing games for a long time, though, artistically, creatively, and then also, as a publisher. And so they know what they're doing. It's a lot of fun. But I'm glad that you love the art. I absolutely love it as well. And the goal is build some really cool family friendly IP that once we start to build that player base a little bit bigger, can become really recognizable and hopefully become a huge part of the brand that Honeyland is.
Yeah, I feel like there's like sometimes games tend to like resemble each other, and like when you hit one of these, like, well, this is like, wow, it's in a league of its own. It has like its own personality. It looks cool. It looks shiny. It looks like up to date, like today's world and all that stuff. So it's pretty awesome. Um, cool. Coming back to the game a little bit. So I think we talked a little bit about Web3 games, like, but it sounds like you're also bringing in Web2 players in a Web3 space. How are you handling that?
Yeah, so this was one of our kind of early thesis was that Justin and Apoor, two of our co-founders, had a lot of experience in like mobile ad tech and basically driving high volume installs for some of the most popular Web 2 games in the world through app stores and other kind of performance marketing channels. And so this was like a domain level expertise that we had that we felt like would be a competitive advantage if we could build a really fundamentally sound Web 3 game that we could then go launch like a Web 2 playbook. Again, we needed all these little components in between, the ability to be discovered in app stores and sign up with a Google account and buy and sell and trade cryptocurrency and NFTs inside the app without needing signatures. So like remove all the friction that Web 3 has, then we could go launch the Web 2 playbook. What I would say is it has certainly been a something that we've been able to do at a level that I don't think many Web 3 games have. I would also say that we've probably learned that the what really makes Web 3 games great is more attractive to like a Web 3 native audience than necessarily a Web 2 native audience. And so, you talked about like what's the most engaging part of the game, and truly, probably the financial component to it is the reason that most people are there today. That if you were to say, hey, listen, all these assets that you have can no longer be traded or sold, we would lose a large percentage of our player base, not because the game's not fun, but because their primary motivation for being there is financially motivated, which is great. We just need to kind of lean into that. And so when you bring in Web 2 players and you're not leading with, hey, you can go make a bunch of money playing this game. So not only can you have fun, but you can also get paid doing it. There's some of the things that are in the game don't make as much sense to them. And so I would say we've done a really good job of going and getting Web 2 players, but we've also, where we thought that's where 90% of our player base would come from early on. I think we're much more leaning into the value that Web 3 natives bring to this space as well. And so um, we've got some pretty cool future plans of what we're going to do to where we can build games that I think are far more what I would call accessible, meaning that like just everybody in the world can play them. Honeyland is it kind of a mid-core game. So when we're going and just finding people through whatever performance marketing or app stores or things launchers like that, there's a little bit of kind of a learning curve or an investment that's required into Honeyland before it really becomes fun. And if you really want to progress, honestly, dumping 50 or $100 into the game is really your best kind of a necessary component. Now you're not spending that, you're investing that, right? Because you're buying assets that you ultimately own and you can trade and sell. But most Web 2 players don't see it that way. They're used to spending money into a game, not investing money into a game. So when you say, hey, it's going to cost 50 or $100 to really start to like progress the way that you want to, oftentimes we lose some of those players. And so our goal is to really take what we've learned about that, take all this tooling that we've built, right? Like all that tooling that I talked about that had to exist for Honeyland is now becoming kind of this competitive moat that we're building. That when we can find game 2 and 3 and 4 to start to build out this gaming ecosystem that is far more attractive to Web 2 players that can kind of easily slide them in and get them falling in love with the game immediately, not just because of the financial component, but because the gameplay and it's much more accessible. Then I think we can really teach them the financial component and make it quite a bit more fun. And so I think that's kind of the vision of Hexagon Studios as a whole. Honeyland will always be our play and earn game. It's the one that's the token emission vehicle. It's our baby. It's where all the new innovation will take place. But it does, when you start to build that innovation into Honeyland, it can be easily repeated into other games that may be a little bit more friendly to Web 2, where we can really test those theories and or those, I should say, those thesis or assumptions that we have in much broader scale.
Yeah, and I feel like it's almost like a Web3 now is more like a two-way street, whereas Web2 was more like, well, put some money in there, but you can't really get it out.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And so, but if you have that mindset that every dollar I put in, I can't ever get out, then thinking that you would spend $100 to come into a game seems what crazy, right? But if that $100 is actually going to turn into $200 over the next 60 days, that and you're having fun playing a game, now that seems a lot less crazy. And so there's a little bit of a learning curve to say, like, yeah, if you're putting $100 into the game, just understand that's an asset that you have, and you can go sell that in the marketplace. You can use it to breed or hatch more. You can go find HXD tokens that over time, if you're earning $3 a day with that $100 worth of assets that you spent over 30 days, you've actually just made all of your money back, and now you still own these assets. And so it's just a different mindset, but it's not done $1 or $2 at a time in the same way that Web2 games are. But almost everything that you spend inside Honeyland is thought of more as an investment than just a sink.
Yeah, and I feel like this is why I think it's even more important to like kind of secure the accounts and make sure the users are unique and all that stuff. 'Cause, like the moment you insert that kind of like any kind of mechanics like that, people will try to game it.
People absolutely. People try and game it to try and get an unfair share, and like you said, uh, it's a small inconvenience at every single person level, but just understand that that inconvenience is actually what's making the game and the ecosystem great. I told you guys from day one when we reached out and started talking to you guys, and you guys said we haven't really done any gaming projects before. I said I honestly think this can change Web3 gaming forever because I know enough founders of Web3 games that all deal with this issue in a significantly different way than Web 2. Web 2 has to think of it in more like bots and like how can games be like really just made less fun, but they're not really extracting or exploiting an ecosystem that has a true financial component to it. And so there's a different motivation behind Web3 multi accounters or bots or wallets or non human activity taking place. That's another layer beyond just what exists in Web 2. And so I think it's really, really important. And Web3 games that can unlock this will find ways that they can reward players in significantly more meaningful ways.
Yeah, makes total sense. And hey, just like before I forget, what chain are you guys on? I didn't ask at the beginning.
Solana.
Yeah, it's like this I think for like how like the crypto space and blockchain space evolved, like I think now we have like almost like the tech that enables these kind of interactions. I think in the past it used to be fairly difficult to do kind of these kind of mechanics on chain, like bringing these like transactions because like it cost a lot to like do transactions back a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. We're still so early on this. Like, if we're being honest, that process of getting certified inside Honeyland, if it looks like that 12 months from today, we've failed, right? Like we're building these technologies as we go. And so they'll become so much better over time, but somebody's got to be the first to come out and do this, right? And to like figure this out for the very first time. And so I think that's ultimately what we're doing together. But yeah, I think things are going to become cheaper. They're going to become more frictionless. They're going to become far more user friendly. Like all those things over time are going to happen. But right now, it's about really getting that tooling in place and then perfecting it later. But it unlocks so much more in terms of what we can do with game design once we have that in place. And I'm so grateful that we found a partner like you guys to kind of take this chance and innovate with us and do this together for again something that it's funny. I went back and I'm traveling right now, and on my plane last night I said, we're almost halfway through the year. I want to go back and listen to my vision keynote that I gave in January, kind of see where we are on that roadmap to kind of like check in. And I talked about this in January, and I said we're going to do certified beekeepers, and this will be one of the most important things that we do for all of Web3 gaming that will probably not get anywhere near the recognition or appreciation that it deserves because it doesn't seem that significant on the surface, but it is so significant from how it completely changes the way that we can design games in Web3. And so I still firmly believe that it's really cool to see, that we're doing this together alongside of you guys.
I mean, definitely see how you guys are pioneering in this space and then and kind of like pushing the boundaries of where current like Web3 gaming is. What can other industries learn from like your experience and from Web3 gaming in general? What is like transferable?
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean I think we're probably learning from other industries more than they're learning from us at this point. You kind of a lot of what we're stealing from is what I know from watching the evolution of Web two. I've been in Web two for over 2 decades, building businesses. I was on the forefront of everything from digital marketing to social media to e-commerce to SaaS to I've had businesses in all of those as they were kind of coming into market, and you realize that like innovation is going to thrive, but what you think is possible today is is really kind of nowhere. Like I think we're on the second floor of a 100 floor building, but you don't know what's on the 30th floor and the 60th floor until you really get there. And certain things start to get unlocked that enable a lot more. And so I think Web3 is probably more learning at this point from other industries and from ourselves than anything else. But I would say if I had to take the question the other way, it's that you know innovation is or new technology allows for innovation to thrive and it allows for bad actors to thrive, unfortunately. And so those are kind of the two things that are succeeding in this space right now is anybody who has that bad actors can create scam tokens and rug pulls and all that stuff, and true innovators are really thriving as well. And so to really think about when you're putting your time or money or interest or energy behind something, are we probably more on the bad actor side, or are we probably more on the innovator side? And by the way, it's a very murky area where that happens, and what that looks like. And so it's why it's challenging, but I think it's a lot of fun. And yeah, we're on the second floor of a 100 floor building, so I think that's what's really fun.
I love that metaphor, and I think like even more so, like to your point about the 30th floor. I don't think it's even built right now. We're building the building as we're like moving up the floors.
100%. And this is where, like, when I go back to, looking at like early Web 2, um, nobody would have ever thought that e-commerce, that literally like 90% of the things that I buy now would just be online. Because when you look at like 2002, people were like, put my credit card in an internet browser. You're absolutely crazy. People are just going to steal that, and they're going to go charge things. And so like people were worried about credit card, about literally putting payment information into a computer. And now this is my credit card, right? Like it's all my credit card is stored digitally at this point. And so um, those are the types of like technology progressions that we have that really start to unlock new things that until that exists, e-commerce can't become a thing, right? And so I think that's where Web 2 is getting or Web 3 is really fun at this point, but it's also a lot of this trial and error and a lot of these things that we're doing and succeeding or doing and failing are leading us to that next point where technology builds on technology, and all of a sudden we have these massive unlocks. And this is where you've seen all the different revolutions of from DeFi to NFTs to GameFi to all these things that slowly build on top of each other and are creating a much wider, bigger, more fun space. But you're right, we the 30th floor is not built yet. It's not like we're not there because we can't. The elevator is still being built, one floor at a time. And I think that's where it's really fun that we don't know what the 30th floor looks like. But as long as you stay curious and really continue to build things and stay funded, you'll get to those floors. And I think that's what makes it really, really fun.
Stay funded and also stay aware of the guardrails. Make sure you have guardrails as you're
Yeah.
building. The other piece I think is pretty cool, like what's happening right now. Like to your point about credit cards, like back in the day, people wouldn't put them on the websites. And even right now, like people are not paying with crypto as much as you'd expect them to. But like I was able for the first time to actually book stuff with crypto, like pay for conferences, pay for hotels, stuff like that. Like for the first time since like I've been in crypto, like have a meaningful, decent experience. Like it didn't take like 30 minutes for the payment to go through. It took like maybe 1 minute max. So that was it's pretty cool.
You're so right. I can't wait until, like if you go to Solana Breakpoint or like those events, everything's done through like Solana Pay, right? And it is all done through here, through a wallet. Like, and even that's not as it's not as seamless as Apple Pay. Um, but once we have a crypto experience that's as easy as Apple Pay, think how much gets unlocked at that point, right? And that feels as secure as Apple Pay, like where my mom would feel comfortable doing that, where I can tell my dad, go buy Bitcoin, and you'll actually be able to not only hold that as a store of investment, but you'll actually be able to pay directly with that without having to think of like pulling something from savings into checking or from like it just becomes one ubiquitous savings account and checking account at the same time with digitally stored assets. And like when you start to think that far, and that's a very like small bridge to get to. Think like what the next bridge is of that when it's again, it's just tough to think like what keeps getting unlocked, but it's really really fun to think when crypto is a true payment rail. And I think gaming is a place that can really take place. Get into a game, have an account, and crypto can become this way to really easily and seamlessly move money around from player to player.
Yeah, I mean definitely, 100%. Cool. Well, I know we're right at time. Thank you, Corey. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. Before kind of I wrap up, is there any kind of final thought you want the viewers to go away with? Anything that you want them to check out? Any product announcement or any plug before we sign off?
Yeah, I'll do a couple things. First off, I just want to give huge kudos and flowers to you guys, Titus. You and the Civic team have been absolutely incredible. Getting Civic certification, the certified beekeeper, into our game was one of the biggest tech challenges that we have had throughout the entire life cycle of the game. And without your team on the other side of that, it would have been nearly impossible to do. And so I just want to give huge flowers to you guys and let anybody from your community know that there's an incredibly talented, smart, hardworking team on the other side of everything that you guys are doing at Civic, and it doesn't go unnoticed. We work with a lot of projects, and so it's really cool to see that on the other side, that level of just maturity and professionalism and talent. So thank you guys for that. And then from us, I would say you can find Honeyland in your app stores, Google or iOS worldwide. Go download, start playing Honeyland. It's a lot of fun. I think you guys will love it. And again, just a lot of just the Web3 innovation that's taking place inside that game is pretty cool. And then the final thing is we have an upcoming mint. So we have a Genesis collection, which is like our highest kind of like status collection in all of Honeyland. And we're putting 1,500 new Genesis pieces into circulation through a mint. So there's like a whitelist mint that if you don't have whitelist already, those are transferable. So you should be able to buy one from somebody who has whitelist if you wanted to. But there's also a raffle mint, which is a lot more fun. 0.05 Sol per mint ticket. And so that will open up on June 1st. It'll run for about 10 days. So you can go to Magic Eden. That's where that mint will take place. Go get yourself 5, 10, 15 mint tickets. And that raffle will take place on June 12th. But that'll be a really cool, fun way to get a lot more people into our Genesis community through that mint. So that's what I would say. That's what's kind of coming up. And the airdrop, there's still 2 days left. So it's not too late to get involved in the airdrop. If you download Honeyland today, start playing, get all the way through. You will need to become certified, which takes you got to get through the welcome pass, which takes about a day and a half. So you've got like you got to do it now. But if you do it now, you should have time to go get certified and do all that just in time for the airdrop and to qualify. So that's it. Thanks, Titus. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great timing for the announcement as well. So cool. Awesome. Check the for sure check out Honeyland. It's a great game. It's super fun. It's super cool branding, and then the art itself is awesome. So thank you, Corey. And then everybody, once again, if you haven't already, like hit that like button, subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on X, on LinkedIn, whatever your favorite podcasting platform is. Stay up to date with our latest episodes. We'll be back sooner than you think. And then don't forget to check out civic.com, learn more about what we do, reach out. Happy to have a conversation about identity, tokenized identity, any kind of like tech challenges you might be having to onboard users, gates, attacks, and whatnot. So, yep, we're here. Happy to help. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Corey. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.